Hi guys. Alright, so we are still reading from this document. State of Wisconsin, Court of Appeals, District 2, State of Wisconsin versus Brendan Dassey. Received on December 1st, 2011, the Clerk of Court of Appeals of Wisconsin. And again, I'm going to say how the hell this is still not resolved. I don't know. But here we go. So on March 3rd, 2006, Brendan was charged with and pled not guilty to being party to the crimes of first-degree intentional homicide, first-degree sexual assault, and mutilation of a corpse. A few days later, his court-appointed attorney, Ralph, I'm not even going to try to say his last name, Sajilski maybe, withdrew from the case after learning that Halbach was a distant relative. On March 7th, so 4 days later, attorney Len Kachinsky was appointed to replace the other guy and found himself in the midst of a media frenzy. On the first evening of his representation, days before he actually even met Brendan, he told television reporters, we have a 16-year-old who, while morally and legally responsible, was heavily influenced by someone that can only be described as something close to evil incarnate. At the Mockner hearing, Kachinsky denied making this statement and testified that such a statement was bothersome because it would in effect admit guilt. A television news recording revealed, however, that Kachinsky had made the statement. Kachinsky first met Brendan on March 10th, so 3 days later, after making that statement, he finally meets Brendan for the first time, at which time Brendan told him that he was innocent. Nonetheless, Kachinsky told reporters waiting on the jailhouse steps that Brendan was remorseful. Another statement that he later admitted carried implication of guilt. Kachinsky also told the press that Brendan could be easily led into the offenses he allegedly committed, and downplayed Brendan's not guilty plea as intended simply to keep his options open. On March 17th, similarly, Kachinsky stated on CNN's Nancy Grace that if Brendan's videotape statement is accurate, an accurate recollection of what occurred, there is, quite frankly, no defense. Really? Again, let's just go on Nancy Grace and tell the world that your client's guilty. And in early April, he told the press that it didn't appear to me that the police were putting words in his mouth. Really? I mean, did you watch the same video we all watched? Because I don't know what you were watching. By making these public statements, Kachinsky intended to send a message to Brendan's family and to Brendan himself that he might take a legal option they don't like, i.e., that he might change his plea to guilty. Brendan, meanwhile, continued to tell Kachinsky that he was innocent, that the police put words in my head, and that he wanted a lie detector test, which is something that innocent people usually do. They ask for a lie detector test because they, especially someone who doesn't really know that they're not admissible in court, they really believe that this will prove I'm telling you the truth. But the fact that Brendan is asking for a lie detector test is pretty important because he believes that it will prove that he's telling his attorney the truth, that he's really innocent, even though he is not believing him. On April 3rd, accordingly, Kachinsky hired a polygrapher named Michael O'Kelly. On April 16th, O'Kelly polygraphed Brendan at the Sheboygan County Juvenile Detention Facility, during which Brendan denied involvement in Halbach's murder. At the Mockner hearing, Kachinsky testified that O'Kelly told him on April 16th that the polygraph results were inconclusive. Following the polygraph, Kachinsky retained O'Kelly as a defense investigator. On or before April 22nd, my middle son's birthday, Kachinsky tasked O'Kelly to, well, maybe I can get some words to come out right, sorry. Let me start over. Following the polygraph, Kachinsky retained O'Kelly as defense investigator. On or before April 22nd, Kachinsky tasked O'Kelly with securing information for a plea bargain process. As specifically opposed to gathering defense information, Kachinsky accordingly instructed O'Kelly to gather anything that would further the state's case against Stephen Avery, even if that evidence tends to inculpate Brendan Dassey. There is proof right there that they were working for the state to help them get a conviction on Stephen Avery. They're working against their client to help the state get a conviction on someone else. They don't care if it screws Brendan. Collateral damage, just whatever. I mean, really, he's a 16-year-old kid. These people make me sick. On April 23rd, furthermore, Kachinsky instructed O'Kelly not only to obtain incriminating evidence, but also to get Brendan to confess. No plea discussions had taken place between Kachinsky and the state to date. Brendan, meanwhile, continued to tell his attorney that he was innocent. On April 23rd and 24th, O'Kelly began preparing to obtain a confession from Brendan by collecting interrogation props. Here we go. I'm about to get really mad. Including a printout of the Halbach Memorial website, a photograph of a dead-end sign near the Avery salvage yard, and a blue ribbon that O'Kelly bought from a florist and photographed hanging outside of Halbach's church to make it look like part of a memorial. That blue ribbon was not even a real thing. When I read this last night, I don't even know how I didn't even notice this before. I've never read this before. When I read this last night, I was furious. I just completely flipped shit and went nuts. I know I've posted it on several of the pages on Facebook because I was just outraged. The Mr. Boohoo crying and crying on the stand about that damn blue ribbon. It wasn't even a real thing. Oh, that makes me so mad. On April 27th, O'Kelly told Kachinsky that he had identified 2 vehicles at the Avery salvage yard that the defense should protect for the prosecution in Avery's case. He thought one of those vehicles contained the knife that had been used to attack Halbach and reasoned that this evidence will only serve to bolster the prosecution. It will corroborate Brendan's testimony and color him truthful. They're going to give information to the state that they found while interrogating their client. Attorney-client privilege? Out the window. Nope. On May 5th, without informing Brendan or obtaining his permission, Kachinsky sent an email to D.A. Kratz and Wiegert offering them information on the whereabouts of 2 vehicles, which may contain some evidence useful in this case. He told them that the information may go a long way toward getting you probable cause for another search of the Avery salvage yard, but requested to stay unnamed in any affidavit for search warrant if at all possible. This was in an email that Kachinsky sent to Wiegert and Kratz. Here you go. Here, go get you a search warrant. I'm going to give you some information. Go get your search warrant. Going to help you out with your case. D.A. Kratz later testified that he knew that Kachinsky believed that the vehicles contained the knife used to attack Halbach. The state sent investigators out to the salvage yard, but no knife or other evidence was found. Of course. Throughout this time period, meanwhile, Brendan was still unflaggingly asserting his innocence. Moreover, no plea deal had yet been extended by the state. So basically, they're doing this for nothing. They're not even being offered a plea deal in exchange for this cooperation or information or anything. Basically, Brendan is just completely going to be fully charged, and they're going to give him this information for free and not get a damn thing in return for Brendan. On May 4th, the trial court held a hearing on Kachinsky's motion to suppress Brendan's February 27th and March 1st statements. Kachinsky expected to lose that motion. After the hearing, Kachinsky and O'Kelly decided that O'Kelly should interrogate Brendan on Friday, May 12th, the same day that the trial court would rule on the motion, because they knew they were going to lose. Because the blow of losing would leave Brendan maximally vulnerable. So they're preying on Brendan at his weakest moment. When he hears that the judges ruled, they're going to admit his 2 confessions into the trial, and they will be used against him, which basically is going to really hurt him. So of course he's going to be very upset. So they want to go prey on him that very day, right after that ruling, when he's most vulnerable. Kachinsky offered to visit Brendan on May 10th and talk to him about giving a complete statement on Friday to O'Kelly. But O'Kelly told Kachinsky not to meet with his client before May 12th and not to accompany O'Kelly on that date. By O'Kelly's reasoning, first of all, why is O'Kelly telling Kachinsky what to do with his own client? But, obviously Kachinsky just complied and did it. By O'Kelly's reasoning, Brendan would be more easily influenced if he were made to feel alone before the interrogation. Further, he reasoned a visit from Kachinsky could be counterproductive, in that Brendan might become more entrenched in an illogical position, that of his own innocence, that will take me longer to undo if I can even without your visit. The 2 accordingly agreed that Kachinsky would stay away from the client until after May 12th, and Kachinsky canceled the visit he had planned for May 10th. Good job. On Saturday, May 6th, O'Kelly continued preparing for the May 12th interrogation by meeting with Fassbender and Calumet County investigator Dietering to review crime scene photographs. At that meeting, the officers made clear that they understood that O'Kelly needed those materials in order to obtain an admission from Brendan, who was denying involvement. On May 7th, O'Kelly requested additional interrogation props from D.A. Kratz, Dietering, and Fassbender, including more crime scene photos, witness interview reports, extensive amounts of electronic discovery, and a copy of Halbach's missing person flyer. Kachinsky later testified as May 12th approached, he began to feel that O'Kelly was doing the prosecutor's work for him. Because he was. He did not, however, request that O'Kelly cease his activities. So he knows that what O'Kelly is doing is going to screw their client over. And he still doesn't tell him to stop. He doesn't ask him to stop. He doesn't ask him to change his, nothing. He just lets him do it. On May 9th, O'Kelly sent Kachinsky an email detailing his opinions about the Avery family. Ooh, this email that we've all heard. In it, he stated, "These are criminals. This is truly where the devil resides in comfort. I can find no good in any member. These people are pure evil. This is where one would eat their young to justify a control issue where none previously existed. A friend of mine suggested this is a one-branch family tree. Cut this tree down. We need to end the gene pool here." We're talking about a 16-year-old kid, you giant piece of shit. We're not talking about a criminal, okay? I don't care what your family has done. 16-year-old kid, innocent, never been in trouble, never done anything wrong, and this is how you're talking about him. You're basically putting all of this on him because of his family, your opinions on his family, which, you look at court records, sure, maybe some people have some priors or whatever. Who cares? That has nothing to do with Brendan at all. And you, the two of you, the fact that you could do this, knowing that he's just a kid and had nothing to do with anything his family had ever done or been accused of doing. Just is beyond belief. At the Mockner hearing, O'Kelly tearfully testified that this case had always been pretty emotional for him and that his emotions sided with what happened to Halbach. This, of course, was when he was having to read this email in front of everyone. It's being videotaped, judges listening to it. He looks like a giant piece of shit. And of course he's crying. And he blames it on that blue ribbon. That same blue ribbon that wasn't even a real thing. I mean, if that had actually been a memorial at Teresa's church, maybe I could see that. But he made that up. And that... I'm not sure if Brendan's attorneys at this Mockner trial knew that that prop had been bought and photographed by O'Kelly and that it wasn't real. I don't know if they knew that then. They know it now, obviously, for this appeal. Excuse me. On May 12th, the trial court denied Kachinsky's motion to suppress Brendan's February 27th and March 1st statements. Of course, we knew this. Hours later, O'Kelly conducted a one-on-one videotaped interrogation of Brendan in a classroom at Sheboygan County Jail. He began by sitting Brendan down at a table covered with interrogation props and told him for the first time that his polygraph indicated a 98% probability of deception. He lied to him. It was inconclusive, remember? When Brendan protested his innocence and explained that on March 1st he had merely been guessing and agreeing to whatever the police said, O'Kelly refused to listen. He told Brendan that if he confessed again, then I'll help you through this process and you will not be doing life in prison. Which, first of all, he has no power, no authority, nothing, no offer from the state, no way to promise him this, but he's promising him this. In that event, he said Brendan could get out and have a family as soon as 20 years. That's important to remember because later on Brendan's going to repeat this. Even though no plea offer was or had been on the table, had yet been on the table. On the other hand, O'Kelly told him that if you lie to me, guess what I'll have to do? I'll have to stand up, put everything away, and leave. Because that means you want to go to prison for the rest of your life. If you want to go to prison for the rest of your life because you're going to hang on to some lies, then I can't help you. All told, he instructed Brendan that he would face life in prison if you lie to me, no fewer than 10 times. So he basically just kept telling him, if you, after Brendan wrote out his real true statement of what happened, that really short, this was not a very eventful day for me. I came home from school, I went in, I played some games, I went over to a bonfire, went home, went to bed kind of stuff. You know, the same exact statement he's been saying all along, the one he ended up saying in his own trial when he was on the stand. Same story, never changed until the little seeds got planted. He told the same story to O'Kelly. O'Kelly is like, that's the story you're going to stick with. Can't help you because you're lying to me. After approximately 40 minutes, Brendan began making admissions for the first time since his March 1st police interrogation. Under O'Kelly's direction, he eventually wrote a confession, and after O'Kelly told him that he wanted Brendan to repeat his confession to the police, he agreed to do so. Of course he did, because he complies with anything anyone asks him to do. O'Kelly telephoned Kachinsky to inform him that he had secured Brendan's confession, at which time the two agreed that O'Kelly should call Fassbender to offer him both another chance to interrogate Brendan and a copy of Brendan's written confession that he just got. Not only did O'Kelly immediately do just that, but Kachinsky's direction, he also gave Fassbender a verbal preview of the admissions Brendan had just made, much to the officer's discomfort. At about the same time, Kachinsky emailed Fassbender, Wiegert, and D.A. Kratz to confirm both that the police would get a second chance to freely interrogate Brendan, and that O'Kelly would be available to brief them before the interrogation commenced. Yeah. That's bullshit. The next morning, on Saturday, May 13th, Wiegert and Fassbender met O'Kelly at the Sheboygan County Jail, at which point O'Kelly offered to tell them what Brendan had said the previous night and what Wiegert recognized was a breach of the attorney-client privilege. The officers then met with Brendan in an interrogation room at the jail. Kachinsky, who was previously scheduled to attend a National Guard practice, did not attend the interrogation at all. O'Kelly monitored it from another room via closed-circuit video. As of May 13th, the state had neither extended a plea offer nor requested a proffer. In fact, Kachinsky had explicitly agreed with D.A. Kratz the previous night that the state would offer no consideration for Brendan's statement on May 13th. So basically, again, we're going to give you this for free. Kachinsky had obtained no immunity for Brendan and had not discussed with the state whether any new inculpatory statements would later be used against Brendan. Alone in the interrogation room, Brendan gave police another hours-long videotaped statement implicating himself and Stephen Avery in the rape and murder of Halbach. Much of this rambling confession was significantly inconsistent with his March 1st story, of course. When pressed by officers about these inconsistencies, Brendan repeatedly explained that on March 1st he had been nervous and just guessing about many of the details. These inconsistencies led D.A. Kratz later to refer to Brendan's May 13th statement as a fiasco. Because if you watch it, it's a mess. In the midst of the interrogation, Fassbender told Brendan that he and Wiegert were going to give you another chance to go over a few of these details and make us believers that you're telling the truth, not what we want to hear, not what you think we want to hear. And here we go. I'm about to get mad again. The officers then left the interrogation room and asked O'Kelly, "Hey, I thought you said he was going to confess. What's going on?" O'Kelly advised Wiegert to take the lead during questioning because Brendan plain doesn't like Fassbender, whereas he loved Wiegert and thought he walks on water. Accordingly, the two officers traded seats and resumed questioning, with Wiegert now taking the lead. As the interrogation went on, Wiegert began advising Brendan to confess to his mother over prison telephones. Like, really? Here, hey, let me give you a guide to how to question Brendan and get the answers that you want because, obviously I see you're not happy. So we're going to give you what you need. Again, free, for nothing. Nothing. They're not doing anything but hurting Brendan. Wiegert: "When are you going to tell your mom about your involvement in Halbach murder?" Brendan: "Probably next time I see her." Wiegert: "'Cause you lied to her so far, right? Don't you think you should call her and tell her?" Brendan: "Yeah." Wiegert: "When are you going to do that?" Brendan: "Probably tonight." Wiegert: "Don't you think she has the right to know?" Brendan: "Yeah." Wiegert: "Yeah, I think she'd like to hear it coming from you rather than from me." Sound threatening him. We're going to tell your mommy on you. Brendan: "And if she has any questions, because I'm seeing her tomorrow." Wiegert: "Okay, she's coming here tomorrow." Brendan: "Mm-hmm." Wiegert: "Then maybe it would be a good idea to call her and tell her before she gets here tonight. That's what I would do, because otherwise she's going to be real mad here tomorrow. Better on the phone, isn't it?" Brendan: "Mm-hmm." Wiegert repeated the suggestion several times throughout the rest of the interrogation. Okay, my cat's saying hello. After the interrogation ended, Brendan telephoned his mother the same day. At the beginning of the recorded call, he told her that Mike O'Kelly and Mark Wiegert think I was lying, echoing what O'Kelly had said the previous day. Brendan explained that if he came out with it, he would only face 20 or less years in prison, Again, echoing O'Kelly, he added that they asked me if I wanted to be out to have a family later on. When Brendan began to repeat his confession to her, however, Barb interrupted and protested that Brendan's story could not be true because she had seen Brendan at home at 5 o'clock on October 31st, the same time that, according to Brendan's confession, the crime was occurring. Brendan gave her the following explanation. Barb: what about when I got home at 5? You were here. Brendan: yeah. Barb: yeah. When did you go over there? To Stephen's trailer. Brendan: I went over there earlier and then came home before you did. Barb: why didn't you say something to me then? Brendan: I don't know, I was scared. Barb: you wouldn't have had to have been scared because I would have called 911 and you wouldn't be going back over there. If you wouldn't have been here, maybe she would have been alive yet. So in those statements, you did all that to her too? Brendan: some of it. Yeah, so that statement that Wiegert and Fassbender told Brendan to call his mom and tell her that he was involved. Later on at the trial, they were asking why they did that. Why did they do that? And I believe it was Wiegert said, we needed Barb's cooperation because half the time she was against us and half the time she was trying to help us. And, basically she's being mama bear. What did you do to my son? Flipping shit all over him like she had every right to. Yeah. So, this is at the May 4th suppression hearing. The one that was later going to be denied on the 12th. Wiegert denied making any promises to Brendan on March 1st that would have encouraged his cooperation. He admitted, however, that he had agreed during the interrogation that if Brendan was honest, that he would go to bat for him. Wiegert further testified that his questions to Brendan on March 1st were not framed so as to suggest certain answers that the detail came from Brendan. In response, Kachinsky presented brief testimony from Brendan's mother, Barb, whom he believed was the best qualified witness in the world to testify Brendan's suggestibility. Maybe so. Despite this belief, he did not prepare her for the hearing. Indeed, she did not understand the purpose of this hearing or why she was being called to testify. At the hearing itself, he elicited testimony from her that Brendan was enrolled in some special education classes and received really, really bad grades. Kachinsky admittedly found her testimony non-responsive, but he did not question her further about Brendan's suggestibility, instead deciding to quit while I was ahead. No, you weren't. And you knew that. Call a real expert to testify. I mean, if you're really trying to get those confessions thrown out, call a real expert witness. And Barb. But let Barb know what the hell she's there for. Why are you bringing her up on the stand? Tell the judge. Tell them that Brendan is very suggestible. You're his mom. You know that. If she knew that, she could have done that, but he didn't tell her. This is the kind of thing that you do when you're trying to prepare your witnesses. You're going to tell them the kind of questions that you're going to ask because you need them to give this information to the court so that they have it. But you just randomly throw her up there and she's completely blind. She has no idea what the hell is going on. Just like much of the whole entire thing. She doesn't know what's happening. And Kachinsky, you're a piece of shit. I mean, you should have called an expert witness. You should have prepared Barb and told her what kind of information she needed to share. Because it's obviously true, which, like I said, we look at Brendan's psychological evaluation and we already know that this stuff is true. But of course, you didn't do that, did you? No, of course not. No. Kachinsky also presented the testimony of school counselor Chris Schoenberger Gross, who testified that Brendan had borderline to below average IQ with difficulties expressing himself verbally, using his words, as well as understanding some aspects of language. She brought a number of school records with her, but Kachinsky declined to introduce most of them into evidence. At the close of the hearing, Kachinsky stated that the interrogations involved no suggestive questioning and asked the court to suppress Brendan's statements due to the existence of much subtler pressures. Like, are you intentionally trying to get to lose this? I mean, why go through it if you aren't even going to try? Just for looks, for appearances? Because you really failed, and you know that. And you are a judge now, Kachinsky. You know that. He never informed the court that Brendan had told his mother on March 1st that he was not really guilty and that the police had gotten to my head. Of course he didn't tell him that. At some time before August 25th, 2006, the trial court learned that Kachinsky had not attended Brendan's May 13th police interrogation, and that the state public defender had subsequently removed Kachinsky from its Class A felony certification list because it found such failure as indefensible. Thus, it permitted Kachinsky to withdraw his counsel, reasoning that his failure to present while his client gave a statement to investigators. Failure to be present. Wow, I totally read that word wrong. Failure to be present while his client gave a statement to investigators. A statement which, according to the special prosecutor's petition filed May 17th, supporting his motion to increase bail, provided new information to authorities on the crimes charged here. I believe that constituted deficient performance on Attorney Kachinsky's part. This is not the kind of assistance of counsel a defendant should have. Hell no. If that's the kind of defense you're going to get, you might as well ask a watermelon to defend you because they would do a better job. Come on. After Kachinsky withdrew, he turned over his files to successor counsel Mark Fregman. Missing from the files, however, was all documentation relating to the events of May 12th, as well as May 5th email in which Kachinsky had offered to lead the state to what he thought was the murder weapon. At the Mockner hearing, Fregman testified that if he had known about those materials, he would have turned them over to the court as evidence that Kachinsky had been working for the state. Those materials never came to light until post-conviction counsel obtained them well after the trial from O'Kelly and from the state, respectively. Finally. Kachinsky's not there anymore. He's not representing Brendan anymore, and he's still trying to screw him over. Why? What is your problem with this kid? Why not say, you know what? I didn't feel like defending him. I didn't believe him. Something. But here's all the stuff I've got. You do what you want to do with it. Why not just turn all that over? Everything you've got. Why? Because you're covering your own ass, obviously. You're covering your ass to show that you were working with the state. How is this guy a judge? How does he have a license? How did he not have some kind of criminal charges brought against him? I just don't understand this. Can somebody explain this to me? Because I'm furious with these guys. Something needs to happen to them. I hope to God that the new attorneys can, once they get running out, go after all of them. Because Wiegert, Fossbender, Kachinsky, O'Kelly, all these people, they need to have some charges brought against them for all the things they did to Brendan. How much they screwed him over. Come on. I don't know what we can do about it, but if you have suggestions, please let me know. I'm going to put the link to this document in the description below so you can read it, because there's lots of information in here. a lot more than I read. Now that I'm losing my voice from reading so much and, trying to get over being a little bit sick. So thanks for watching, and see you soon.